Okay, we're a little past 6:30. Let's go ahead and get started. So the meeting is called to order.
Down in the low.
Excuse me, let's start the meeting. We'll have plenty of time to visit later. So I'm going to start off with announcements. We have West Rock cleanups coming up this month on June 15th, 23rd, and 29th. We'll always take volunteers. That's how we raise money for our group to do the good works that we do. The VFW breakfast is this Sunday, Father's Day, and that's at 8329 Southeast 89th. And then after breakfast there, we can come up here to the Community Connection Center because they're having root beer floats and all the Father's Day after the church services. And then the church has organized their neighborhood cleanup, annual cleanup, June 22nd, here in the parking lot, and people bring unwanted items that to go in the drop boxes. They line up like 6 or 7 drop boxes.
Can they be living?
You want to get rid of some living
It's, tempting.
Do you know if they do shredding?
No.
No?
We tried that years ago and didn't have any success.
And would you like to add anything about the cleanup that you're doing?
That we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, we're taking part in it.
That we're partnering with
you.
Yeah. Actually, no. 9 to noon.
I have a volunteer sheet over there.
Oh, cool.
If people want to come
Yeah, if you want to
help.
volunteer, we'll take all the volunteers we can. We're probably going to do more outbound pickups.
You need runners.
Yeah. So runners and teams to go with the runners.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we have vouchers for 9 30-yard drop boxes.
I'll pass that
I'd like to use them all.
And thank you, all of you who assisted with the neighbor-to-neighbor cleanup of Renee's backyard. If you haven't seen it yet, Char posted a nice little slideshow of the photos that were taken.
We do, everybody.
We lifted those off the Facebook page from neighbor to neighbor. And I believe that's it. So our guest tonight is Quinn Andrus, and I understand she goes by Quinn. She's a community relations officer with the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks very much. I'm usually pretty good at projecting, but if my voice drops off and you can't hear me, just let me know. And I'll start with the really important things. These shoes, I got them at newchick.com. They're super comfortable. I've been walking around in these heels for 2 days and not experiencing any discomfort whatsoever. So go there, girls. You'd be surprised how many questions I get just from strangers on the street. It's kind of nice. My husband tells me that I have the word information written in like some secret code on my forehead because everywhere we go, people ask me things just out of the blue. I've only lived in Portland for 3.5 years. I'll tell you just a little bit about me so that you understand my basis of expertise, so you know that I'm not just talking. I have had 4 careers, maybe more. I was raised in Southern California, but I didn't move to Oregon from there, so. I joined the Foreign Service and I was a diplomat with the State Department for 10 years. So I have a lot of experience working overseas in our embassies. I adjudicated tens of thousands of visitor visas. I'm familiar with everything that goes on overseas in terms of our foreign policy and our processes. So you're always welcome to ask me questions about that. And that gives me a good base of knowledge for what I did next. After the Foreign Service, I got kind of pigeonholed in the Middle East. I was there for 3 years because of my language skills. They didn't leave me in Romania for 5 years. I speak Romanian. No, they left me in the Middle East. I speak Arabic. But I decided I've had enough, I want to come home. So I left the State Department and I joined DHS as an asylum officer. And so I adjudicated a request for asylum for a couple of years in Houston. So I have a very good understanding of that process as well. And I have to tell you, everything I hear about it out there in the ether is incomplete. I don't want to say that it's wrong or full of lies because I think that's pejorative, but it's definitely incomplete. So if you need more information about that, here I am. I'm an expert on that too. I've got some experience. And then I moved to New Mexico because my husband was raised there and he always had this feeling that that was his place and that's where his heart was. And so I felt like I wanted to move back there to see if that was true because he had followed me all over the world. And we moved to New Mexico and I adjudicated every single kind of application for immigration benefits there. As an asylum officer, I just did asylum. But as an immigration officer in New Mexico, I adjudicated green cards and petitions for family members and every single thing that can happen, adoptions, petitions for foreign-born spouses. And we did learn that Mexico is really that beautiful and we'll probably retire there. He was right. It is the home of our hearts. And then I came here. So I moved to Oregon from New Mexico, and that's what I always tell people, oh, where did you come from? And they're just waiting for me to say California.
Yeah, don't say California.
I always say New Mexico, and they're like, you can just see the wind go out of their sails. So now I'm here. This was kind of my dream job because I really like outreach and I like talking to people. It doesn't frighten me or upset me. I don't have nervousness. And I enjoy meeting people who have incomplete information and just parting the curtain a little bit more for them so that they can see the bigger picture. I like to say that I don't want to tell you what to think. I want to show you what the information is that's out there and how you can learn more on your own. People should always make up their own minds. So, oh, and I talk to everybody. I don't discriminate. I don't just go to talk to liberal groups or conservative groups. I'll talk to anybody who asks me as long as they're not a bona fide hate group on some list somewhere. Like that would be a problem. I'd have trouble justifying that one. So let me just show you a couple of things. This is the INA.
Oh.
This is the, right? This is the Immigration and Nationality Act. And this is what we base all of our adjudications on because as officers, we adjudicate petitions under the law. We look at the application and interpret the law and see if people are what they're applying for, that they qualify for it under the law. Not if they qualify for it because they're cute or because they're from a certain country, but under the law. It's got to be equal. And these pages are paper thin.
And you had to read that whole thing?
Just got to know how to find stuff in it.
Oh, okay.
But look, when someone is here as a permanent resident, or when someone's here and they want to become a permanent resident, we call that adjusting status. And that's under Section 245 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. And that's this page that I have bookmarked here with all the writing and the highlighting. And it goes on for like 10 pages. And sometimes I would read a paragraph that was pertinent to what I was adjudicating, and I would think, what did I just read? And I would have, because it's the law, and I would have to read it 5 or 6 times. So I just bring these things up so that you know what we're up against. It's been reformed. You can page through it, have fun. Let me know if you find interesting stuff. I was also a police officer before I joined the Foreign Service. I did that for 10 years too. And in the middle of the night when I was on graveyard and dispatch, I would read the penal code. I'm a law geek. If I was a lawyer, I would probably hate the law. So, anybody Jewish here? I'm Jewish. That's our Torah and this is our Mishnah. That's the law, and this is the book where everybody's talked about the law and tried to figure it out and interpret it and say what it means. And it's bigger than the INA because it has court decisions that were based on adjudications. It describes how those court decisions came about and what the considerations were that the judges had to do. So sometimes when I don't understand the law or I've got a case that seems like it kind of applies, I look for something parallel in here to guide me on how to go forward.
that like an annotations book?
I'm exhausted. Yeah, see, I wish it was kind of like, I wish it was like just the text in the middle and then all the notes are on the side. That would be funny as heck. You can page through any of this stuff if you like. I bring these with so that you get an idea that this isn't something that we can hire someone and train them in a week and then say, okay, go do it. Like, you really don't want that. And then they make these pocket guides and they update them every year because the law hasn't changed in a long time. But the way it's interpreted and applied can change according to whoever's in the executive office. So priorities change according to who the executive is. And then so we have these immigration pocket guides to kind of keep up with that. And then I found, you know those handy like algebra quick glance things? I found one for immigration law.
Oh, there we go.
I mean, it's really good. It's very accurate. I use it all the time. Okay, I'll stop there. Those are just some of my resources. I also rely on case law. I'm constantly searching online for circuit court decisions, things like that. So, I used to do presentations that were called Immigration 101 or Naturalization 101. And it would describe in detail, how does someone become a U.S. citizen? And that's interesting, but it's, like I can talk for a whole hour about that. And what I discovered after giving presentations was that people didn't have a fundamental understanding of what agencies in the United States federal government administer our immigration policies and what responsibilities they have and how they're all linked. And that's why people call me ICE. Because they don't have a good understanding of how these agencies fit. So I only brought 3 slides with me and they're all really awesome.
That'll be good for the next one.
But here's the second one. And this is just my agency, the Department of Homeland Security. It's a cabinet level agency, as you know, or department, sorry. And it was created after 9/11 by the Bush administration to kind of consolidate our national security apparatus. We had the INS, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, and people still call me that too, and I don't mind. But that was kind of broken up, those functions were broken up into 3 different agencies. So we have the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP. Those are the people that patrol our borders and are at our airports and our different ports of entry, and they inspect. Sorry? Oh, trying to lift it? Be careful. There's a reason I've got the guns out. It's from those books. So when a foreign national enters the United States, Customs and Border Inspection inspects them. That's actually a term of law. It's in the INA. When U.S. citizens enter, CBP examines them. Like, it's just, these are the words we use. They mean things. Illegal alien, that's in the law. That's where that came from. It didn't start as a pejorative term. It's actually a legal term, but it's, as so many words are, it gets, appropriated and used in different ways. So, but a lot of people don't realize that it's right there in the book. So, Customs and Border Protection, they're at our front door. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, they patrol the interior. They handle immigration matters that are inside the United States, not at the port. So we have some inspection points that are inland a little bit, like in New Mexico there was a CBP inspection point 50 miles inland, but that's still just CBP. When ICE gets involved, there are 2 sections. There's ERO and there's HSI. And ERO is Enforcement and Removal Operations, and that's the agency that everybody knows about and everybody can do. If it's immigration, it's ICE. And what they mean is it's ERO, Enforcement and Removal Operations. So if someone has been ordered removed by a judge, ICE is the agency that's going to enforce that removal. In the state of Oregon, there are some pretty strict laws about how much ICE can interact with local law enforcement. And so they don't do things that they might do in other states. Like ICE will not descend in mass upon a Walmart and just check everybody's documents and like bill netting for illegal aliens. They just don't do that. Here in Oregon, they have targeted operations where they'll know who they're looking for, and they know pretty much where to find them, and they go out and get them. So that's the way ICE works. If you have questions about that, I can try to answer them, but it's not my agency. I just go out with Melissa a lot, so I understand a lot of what they do. The other half of ICE is HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. And I like people to keep this in mind when they're talking about abolishing ICE. Homeland Security Operations rescues people from trafficking on the daily. They are amazing when it comes to breaking up trafficking rings, people that have been brought here for indentured servitude or sexual slavery. They regularly rescue people that are in that life, not just like shut it down administratively or direct some other agency to go in and take care of it. They also do things like art fraud, and their portfolio is enormous, and they do a lot of important work, and I would like people to be more aware of that. So that's ICE. My agency is the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. I like to say right away when I tell people I work for USCIS that it's not an enforcement agency, and then they trust me again. My agency, it's not full of lawyers, but you could think of it that way, because any application that comes in from a foreign national for permanent residency, citizenship, for a U.S. citizen to bring a foreign-born spouse, to adopt children, for a legal permanent resident to bring their spouse to the United States, all these applications need to be adjudicated, and that's what USCIS does. I'm going to pause. Questions about any of those three agencies or anything I've said? Really? Is your head reeling? Or am I just that good?
Yeah.
You're that good. You're that good, Quinn.
Did you already know all that?
No.
Okay, well, at least I'm not being pedantic.
So when you say you adjudicated, so we know that you had a judgment to make, and you used your pamphlets to illustrate what it takes. I have an image of someone basically taking this piece of paper and going like that. It sounds like you have one case that comes to the center of your desk, and it probably took you, on average, how long?
Okay. For a citizenship application, someone who's been a permanent resident here for a long time, is qualified for citizenship and everything's fine with their application, we can probably adjudicate that, interview them, get everything we need, put a stamp on it, probably in 40 minutes. But that doesn't count all the prep that went into it. You know, they were fingerprinted and photographed, and we ran them on a complete background check. We know everything about them, and their file already has their adjustment of status in it from when they got their green card. If they came here on a visa, we've got that record, and the file's full of all their stuff.
Okay.
So 40 minutes for a naturalization. For an adjustment of status, suppose a couple came here without authorization. They got on a boat and snuck here from New Zealand.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, okay, I like to use non-controversial. So they snuck in 20, 30 years ago, and they just kind of got jobs and worked under the table and led uneventful lives. Had a couple of kids. Their kids are U.S. citizens, right, because they're born on U.S. soil. When they're 21 years old, they can petition for their parents to have residency, to come out from the shadows and have a legal status here. There's a lot of twists and turns in the law about whether or not they can do that. But if everything's okay, the child can petition for the parents, and from filing the application to adjudicating, it probably takes about 1.5 years. And then the actual interview of the parents, if everything's in order, the birth certificates are from a place where we believe they're real. New Zealand, sure, they've got good controls on their documents. I would believe their documents. I'd still check them. It's their kid, they haven't committed any crimes since they've been here. Everything's in order. Probably that interview would take about 45 minutes. A lot of the time, there are choices that people have made since they've been here that make their case harder to adjudicate. They might have been arrested for drunk driving a couple of times, or they might have some other criminal background. They might have left the United States and come back a couple of times. That triggers another section under the law. They might have been removed and snuck back. That triggers another section. So any of these things can make it more complicated. I like to tell people that they should always tell the truth in these interviews because there's a waiver for almost everything except for lying. Truly. So if it's a complicated case, again, 45 minutes for the interview, but then we might have to continue it a couple of times to get more information and get it straightened out. Yes?
I know a young lady that just came back from Ireland. She's an American citizen. She came back to the U.S. to have her baby. She brought her boyfriend with her from Ireland. They wouldn't let him through customs because they asked him why he was here, and he said to see his baby born. So they kind of 86 him.
Yeah. I find that with anecdotal stories like this, it's very difficult to know what really happened. I get a lot of lawyers calling me saying, this happened to my client during the interview and it just doesn't sound right. And I'll agree with them, well, that doesn't sound right at all. And then when I finally hunt down what really happened, it's kind of a version of that. So without talking to the officer at the port, we can't really know. He might, let me tell you something about visiting the United States. A person can't just decide, today I think I'll go visit America. It's a beautiful day to be alive. I want to go to Disneyland. Someone has to have permission to come in the United States if they're not a U.S. citizen. A sovereign country has the right and responsibility to control its borders. Every country on the planet does in some way. You might not agree with the way it's done, but we do it. So someone has to apply for permission to come to the U.S. and they have to articulate their purpose. Why are you coming to the U.S.? Well, it's a beautiful day and I want to go to Disneyland. Like, okay, so they get a tourist visa. But here's what they have to do to get that tourist visa. They have to demonstrate that at the end of their visit, they're going to go home. We start that interview with a negative assumption. We assume that everyone who wants to come to the United States is an intending immigrant. It's section 214B of the INA. And what the applicant has to do is overcome the presumption of intending immigration. They have to convince the officer that they're going to go home at the end of their visit. And someone with an American spouse and an American baby might not be intending to go home. Just saying.
Well, no,
or it could be something else.
I figured if they got in trouble telling the truth, he should have said he's just here on vacation, maybe.
Yeah, lying. I don't endorse that.
Well, she's going back to Ireland, getting married over there, so they'll be back probably.
You know, when I see people immigrating here from New Zealand, I think, what is wrong with you? If I ever went to New Zealand, I would rip up my passport and flush it down the toilet, and they would never get me out. Are we recording?
We are.
That's fine. Just don't take it out of context. Yes, ma'am.
On the form to change status,
Yeah.
why is it $500? And I realized that it's like Form N500, and I thought,
Yeah, it's not. All of our applications have fees. When the government is shut down during budget disputes, my agency stays open because we're funded by the fees that we charge people to file applications. For example, it's $750 to apply for citizenship. If someone has made one of those mistakes and needs a waiver, the waiver is $1,200, which we may or may not approve. But they could apply and find out.
Find out.
I
You don't
know
charge them
that sounds harsh, but I'm sorry.
You don't charge them unless they get it?
no.
No,
Okay.
No.
they have to write the check when they mail in the form.
Yeah, and I made sure that it was insured, and I took pictures of the check.
That's
When I went to get my Social Security, I couldn't get it because I didn't have proof of citizenship. I'm Italian. So I had to go through the whole process and go down to the immigration, get sworn in, and the date on it says 1967.
It's a
And I asked the
bureaucracy.
lady, I said, were you even alive? Anyway, it was $500. It was $500 for just that piece of paper. So then I take it to Social Security, and she's flip-flopping it around, and I said, wait a minute.
That's a very expensive
Yeah, I said, that cost me $500.
Be careful.
And she's, oh.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, I thought it was a little, so.
Nah, there's no like meaning there between the form number
Yeah,
and the
because,
price.
well, that was the big joke.
Yeah.
It was poor men, 500.
Sometimes it's.
Why is it so expensive? Administrative costs? No offense.
They want to pay the rent.
Yeah.
We employ a lot of people.
Yeah.
We have a very high volume of applications. There are more than 230 immigration offices just in my agency across the country. And my agency is completely separate from the others. We don't intersect CBP or ICE. We have a different chain of command. We have a different financial structure. They don't get any of our money. We don't get any of theirs. I don't have to follow their rules. They don't have to follow mine. That's why I can say anything I want about this. I don't work for them. But it's expensive to run the agency, it really is. And the prices went up on some of our applications a couple of years ago.
And 600?
The N600.
How this one?
I have to tell you, the director regrets raising the price on that one. He said that if he could change it, he'd probably change that one and lower it back. N600 is for adoptions. So, yeah.
But I gotta say, it was very fast.
Good.
I was shocked, because they gave me a time frame.
Yeah.
I thought, God, I'm never gonna get that Social Security.
Was it
But
here in
was really
Portland?
quick.
Was we have some of the fastest processing times in the nation. It's a very efficient office. And I
Yeah.
have to say, it's full of really good people.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you were to marry an American citizen, can they come in then foreigners?
I did marry an American citizen. Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're talking about a foreign-born national marrying an American
They
citizen.
can come in?
They can apply.
Oh, okay.
They still have to, nothing's automatic. Nothing. Everybody gets screened. You hear a lot about refugees being allowed in without any screening, and that's nonsense. Refugees have some of the most rigorous screening of any immigrant group. So, chances are good that if they don't have anything really egregious in their background, their process won't take more than a year. And what happens frequently is someone is here in some other status, like as a student or working with authorization, and they fall in love. It just happens, right? And get married. And so now this person's here as a student and got married. They can adjust status and stay here and continue going to school because they're in legal status. And it takes about a year for them to switch their status from student to immigrant, spouse of an American citizen, which is a very high priority for us. That's one of the things I wanted to tell you about. Does that kind of answer your question? Okay. I like to bring a lot of humor into how I speak and what I say, but I want you to know that I take it very seriously. I just don't want to make it grim. Okay. Because we can enjoy the law. I want to share that with you. I love the law.
What about asylum cases?
What about asylum? It's just one story after another of unimaginable suffering, I have to tell
So
you.
those people come over, they're given a court date. What's the percentage of those people that never come back to court?
Oh, most of them come for their court dates.
Do they?
Yeah, and that's not exactly how it happens. I want to get back on track, but let me just tell you the process
Sure.
real quick for asylum. So, you got a quarter in your hand, right? One side is asylum, one side is refugee. If someone is inside the United States and requests that kind of sanctuary status, they're an asylee. They're in the U.S. If someone is outside of the U.S. and wants that same status, they're a refugee. They're coming from outside the U.S. But it's kind of the same canon of law that adjudicates both. So as an asylum officer in Houston, I saw people that were already in the U.S. I saw a young man from Syria, for example, who came here as a student, and then everything went south in Syria while he was here. And he was afraid to go back, for good reason. So he applied for asylum. And an asylum officer, adjudicated his case. Just so you know, asylum interviews take about 4 hours. So I spoke to him for a very long time. In that particular case, I was able to find an affirmative resolution for him. I granted his asylum. If I had denied it, then it would go to court because they automatically get another chance to make their case before a judge. My decision to deny would never be final, but my decision to approve can be. Make sense? So that's what they're talking about when an asylee goes to court. What you're hearing about in the news is an asylum, or it's a different kind of aspect of it. The ones that you hear about in the news are people that didn't come here with authorization. The ones that I would see and interview for 4 hours, those were people that were already here with some kind of lawful status and then said, oh, by the way, I can't go back to that place. People that come and present themselves at the border, which is legal. This is legal under the law. I'll show you. And say, I would like to be considered an asylee in the United States because I can't go back to the place I came from. And they have to demonstrate that the reason they can't go back is because they're going to be persecuted on account of a characteristic that is so inherent to them that it would be unreasonable to ask them to change. There are 5 categories under the law: nationality, gender, political opinion, participation in a particular social group. That's the category that covers like homosexuality, people that are persecuted on account of that, or domestic violence. And what's the 5th one, honey? Religion, thank you. How'd you know that?
Good job.
Because it was left. But a person, a lot of the reason these claims fail and are denied by the officer there at the border, and those are really short interviews, is because they haven't demonstrated that they're going to be harmed on account of an inherent characteristic. They've probably demonstrated that they're going to be harmed because they face something that every single other person in their society faces. If it was a basis for asylum, being scared and subjected to violence in your community, then everybody who lives in Juarez would qualify to move to El Paso. Right?
Kind of like people live in Lents.
We want asylum.
Yeah, I'm thinking-
Where are you going to go?
The West Hills.
But
What's the mayor's address again?
that's the part that people don't understand, though, is that it's not enough that they have a very bad situation.
Right.
They have to qualify under the law under one of the 5 bases. So, does that give you like a little wider curtain on it? And they do show up for their appointments, for their court dates. But let me tell you this: we don't need. I was about to editorialize. We need in this country more immigration judges, because the person who claimed at the border that they couldn't go back and was denied and it has a court date, their court date is probably 3 years from now. That's how backed up the system is. So
Does that affect all those court cases? Does that have an effect on legal immigrants coming in?
No.
Does it back up any of that
No.
court process?
No. Not really. There are other processes that have to go before a judge, but they're all backed up.
Right.
They all are. And that kind of brings me to something else I wanted to tell you. The Department of Homeland Security is not the only department that administers immigration law. The Department of Justice is vital. And under the Department of Justice, they hear appeals. So if we find someone isn't qualified as the spouse of an American citizen because they do certain things, or it's actually marriage fraud, and deny, they can take it to the BIA, the Board of Immigration Appeals at the DOJ, to have their case reviewed by judges and a panel of other lawyers and experts who may or may not uphold it. Depends. The Office of the Chief Immigration Judge, who organizes all of the courts where all of these credible fear and reasonable fear in asylum cases are held. Those are all asylum categories. The Office of Immigration Litigation, where they go over civil litigation matters because the government gets sued a lot for immigration cases, things you never hear about. So the Department of Justice has all of like the review function after adjudications are made. That's not where it stops. If someone wants to come here for work, the Department of Labor is involved. If a business, and in Oregon we have a lot of farms and dairies and things like that that employ foreign-born nationals, they have to go to the Department of Labor first and file a certificate saying that they can't hire enough people to do those jobs. That they've tried to hire people in Oregon to do them, People in Oregon don't want to do the job, so we'd like to hire foreign-born workers. They also have, this is very common, I adjudicated visas like this in Romania in a large volume for resorts, hotels on the East Coast, like in Florida. Almost every single one has a certificate from the Department of Labor so they can hire seasonal workers. It makes a little bit of sense if you think about it. Most Americans don't want seasonal work. They want a permanent position that has room for advancement, where they're going to assume more responsibility. That's kind of what we're conditioned to want and expect from our careers, right? So a lot of employers that have seasonal jobs or jobs that don't lead to a step, to a progression, they have a lot of trouble getting Americans to take those jobs. It's just the way it works. It makes sense to bring foreign-born workers here on visas for that. And for the most part, that system works just fine. The Department of Education is involved because we have a lot of foreign-born students that come here. Yay, because they pay out-of-state tuition for the whole ride. Once they've been in Oregon for a year, they don't get to start paying in-state tuition. They pay out-of-state tuition the whole time. So bring on the foreign-born students. I just wanted you to know that these other agencies also have a lot to do with it. And as you've heard in the news, probably Health and Human Services is integral in housing and taking care of unaccompanied minors that come here as refugees. So, this is the only slide I have. I just have it up there to distract you while I talk about things. There are a couple of things that I've heard about a lot in the news that I'm prepared to talk to you about if you're interested in them. Or maybe while we've been sitting here, something else has occurred to you that you want to ask me.
Did you read our page at all? You should have read our Facebook page. There was 70 comments under our, well, that was the last I looked at it. There were 70 comments under us canceling our meeting because of you coming here about people thinking that you were coming in to arrest people on the spot.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
We actually had a person say, what if people came to the meeting that didn't have their papers in order? They're watching too many old movies.
My favorite ones are, remember the $6 million man in Boston?
Yeah.
There was, remember the time there was the gymnast from Romania or something, and she wanted asylum, and he had to protect her? I just find that so funny. Or, you know, I was watching a movie once where someone was in trouble running from the bad guys in Russia, running towards the U.S. Embassy. Oh, I'm the gate! You know, in the real world, we just stand there and watch them run into the gate. Watch them bounce right over. I was in our embassy in Doha, and I took a phone call from someone that said, I need a safe place. I need to stay in the embassy for a couple days. And I said, this is an office building. This isn't a B&B. We don't have bedrooms.
Is that Julian Assange?
No.
Wrong number.
No, but it would have been right for me to refuse that one.
Yeah.
I heard he doesn't leave.
Yeah.
I would find his laundry in the hall.
I think he complains about the food too.
Yeah.
Ungrateful.
I have a question
Haters are gonna hate.
about movies. You were talking about movies.
Sure.
You've seen the movies where one of the other spouse is an American citizen and they get married.
Green card.
Green card, there you go. Did they go through all that
Yeah.
interviewing?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
check each spouse and know if they know each other?
Yeah, you know, you can get down to that. You can interview them separately and see if their stories match.
Right.
But I always found it easier to have two people who are married sit in front of me and I'd say, tell me your story. And they'd go, what? Like, tell me your story. Tell me, how'd you meet? How'd you get together? Because people that are really together, they're gonna, like, no, that's not how it happened. We were at this other place. And remember, Joe was there. And so if one person does all the talking, I know that something's up. You know, and then maybe I'll separate them for an interview. But, you know, it's, I'm not going to say that it's easy to tell when someone's lying, but it's not too difficult to tell when they're hiding something.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we interview people like that. Marriage fraud's a thing. people don't respect immigration law because they feel like it's an administrative crime, that nobody's really getting hurt, you know, because I didn't grab your arm and take something from you, you're not really harmed. So we find that people are pretty casual about marriage fraud, you know, marrying someone. I married him so that he could stay, I felt bad for him. He was living with his real wife the whole time, like, oh my God, that's terrible, that's terrible. I try not to be too judgy about people, but I wish that our system was a little more intuitive, had a little more humanity, was a little more considerate of families and things that people go through. I think that, here I am, I'm editorializing. If we could reform our work visa program so that people could go, leave and come back to their jobs a little more easily, I think you'd find less overstay. Because the reason they stay is because they don't think they can come back.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so, if that, you know, Congress is going to have to come together, and because that's where the law is made. That's where a reform is going to happen. I
Nice to see
remain
Congress doing it.
optimistic, as I always do about everything. You can tell those haters on Facebook that everything was fine. Take a picture of my shoes and post
we're
it.
there. I'm going to put it
Take a
on
picture of my
our
Barbie
page
slipper.
and say, was it really great to have
It
Quinn
was
out?
nice. She was sweet. Yeah, you want to see me wrestle someone in this? That'd be a little salacious. Okay, so 2 things that we hear about a lot. One is family immigration, and I've heard it called chain migration. I think that's kind of rude and pejorative, so I don't like saying that. It's just family-based immigration. And the other thing I've heard a lot about is the diversity lottery. The diversity lotteries, and nobody knows what that really is. Nobody. So I can talk about both these things. Which would you like to hear first? Diversity visa. Chain migration. Both? Okay, we'll get into both. We got time.
Yeah,
I talked a lot. You just give me the hook.
Okay.
I'm still in shock that if you can make it to the embassy door, you're safe.
You're not.
I know. I'm in shock.
You're not.
I always thought, man, if I'm in trouble, if I can just make it to that door.
Movies of light.
I guess I would have been shot for that.
I'm sorry. You know, my husband makes movies for a living. He just came back from New Mexico where he was working on this Tom Hanks movie. And he says there's nothing worse for destroying all of your dreams than working in the movies. Although Tom Hanks is still a good guy. He might be the last one. There's never going to be a hashtag Me Too with Tom Hanks.
Soylent Green?
Soylent Green, that was not.
No, that was.
I saw that when I was a kid.
Charlton Heston.
Charlton's, that was, we're almost there, Okay, just real quick, family-sponsored immigration. So there are different categories for it. I'll just go over on the surface because there's so much, it's so complex. An American citizen wants to be with their family, and if they have a foreign-born spouse, that should be a priority, bringing that person into the U.S. and getting their status legalized. So for American citizens, the very first priority for us are spouses, children, and parents of American citizens. There are no limitations numerically on the number of people every year that can be admitted under those categories. There are numerical limitations for everything else. But if there are 100,000 American citizens that want to petition for their spouse in 1 year, every single one of those spouses is eligible, there's space for them, I'll say that. There's space. Yes, that's exactly.
How long does that take?
It depends on the case. You know, if they haven't really done anything exceptional, if they're here as a student and they fell in love and got married, it might take a year to finish it off. If they've done things that make them a little ineligible, it might take a little longer. In some cases, they have to go back to their country of origin and wait for us to process things here so they can get a visa there and come and enter legally with that new visa. And that takes about 8 months, which is agony when you're in love and you just want to be with your spouse. And here, it's 8 months. That's forever. If you ask
Some
me.
countries that have larger numbers of applications.
That's about how long
Yeah,
it
there
lasts.
are. I'll get to
Bring
that.
the
I
kids.
brought those statistics for the diversity. What's in this water?
So they're not
Okay.
website.
So,
But no.
American citizens, spouses, children, and parents, they can petition for those, bring them to live in the United States as permanent residents. People can be a permanent resident in the United States forever. They don't ever have to become a U.S. citizen if they don't want to. As long as they don't break laws or get in trouble, they can have a green card and live here, work here legally for a long time. After that, everything gets limited numerically, which means that, so for family-sponsored immigration, the unmarried child over 21 of a United States citizen. So like say I naturalized, I'm from New Zealand, please, and I have an unmarried child who's 25 years old. That child would have to wait. That is numerically limited. I could make the petition for them and then they would go on the list. And by numerically limited, this is what that means. If there are 100 spaces every year for kids like mine, but 200 are qualified, the first 100 will get those visas, and the other 100 roll over to the next year. But then 200 people apply that year too, so how big is the pool? 300. So 100 get the visa, and 200 roll over to the next year. You can see how the line kind of starts getting long, right? Okay, so keep that in mind. So for legal permanent residents, people who are here with a green card, they can petition for their spouse as well and their child. They can't petition for their parents. And those are numerically limited. So think about that. Married children of a United States citizen. So if my 25-year-old kid got married, it would put them in a different category. We find the unmarried child of a U.S. citizen, that wait time is usually shorter, so we find a lot of people in this category cohabitating and not getting married to preserve their status. And that's not something the law should do to people, to separate them just because they're married or not. I find that a little, I would like it to see it reformed. And then the brothers and sisters of United States citizens are also numerically limited. Okay, I'm getting to the point. So, for a brother or sister of a United States citizen, let's say that I came here from the Philippines, okay? I'm a Filipino who naturalized and became a U.S. citizen, and now I'd like to petition for my brother to come to the United States as well. Perfectly willing to do that, and he's qualified, so that's fourth category, Filipinos. We are now processing in this month petitions that were filed in March of 1998.
Whoa.
So that Filipino brother has been waiting since March of 1998.
29 years.
He's been on Social Security in the Philippines for 5.
Oh, you mean he aged out? Could be. I'll try to find one that's a little. So, the spouse of a legal permanent resident. So this is someone who's here on a green card, and they're married, and they can't be with their spouse because their spouse can't be in the U.S. legally. So they're petitioning to bring them here legally, right? From
China.
From India. From India. It's the second preference, India. We are, okay, well, March of 2019. We're right on the money with that one. Excellent. So there aren't that many spouses from India petitioning, but if they were from China, oh no, we've got a really good system on that one. Okay, I'm really going to have to report that. Married children of a United States citizen, third preference. For the Philippines, we're processing from November of 1997. Yeah, from Mexico, we're processing from July of 2000. From China, 2007. But here, just in case you're thinking that everybody else gets a free ride, that brother or sister of the United States citizen who immigrated here from Canada, we're processing his Canadian brother that filed in December of 2006. So they've been waiting since 2006. And it's not a matter of wanting to punish certain countries. It's, these visas are numerically limited because if we didn't limit them, we would get a whole lot of people from just a handful of countries. But we limit them from all countries. We have all areas, and then China, India, Mexico, Philippines. That's how it breaks down. Kind of makes sense? Okay.
So Renee had a question.
Yes.
I knew a gal that somebody wanted her to be a mail order bride to the guy in China.
That never happens. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So this guy in China divorces his wife. And she never even met him, but she legally had to go there 2 weeks to prove that she had her picture taken with him. She didn't even know his name.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And so, of course, it was a $25,000 bill, you know. So she comes back here, and I guess somehow she had a petition for him to come here, and then he remarried his wife to petition for her to get there after he divorced her.
Right.
And give her $25,000. Then he went back and remarried his wife somehow. I don't know how, but how can he do that?
I hear circus music. Do you hear circus music?
I smell popcorn.
Okay, that's just straight up marriage fraud. That happens not all the time, but it happens. The only way a couple can, someone wants to immigrate to the U.S. and they don't have a way to do it. You know, it's not just enough that you're a good person and have good intentions. You have to qualify to immigrate to the U.S. Under the law, you have to have a family relation, or you have to be petitioned by an employer. There are only a couple of ways. It's hard to be an immigrant in the U.S. There's all kinds of hurdles. So marrying a U.S. citizen is one way that kind of makes it a little faster, as I just described, right? So sometimes people will marry simply to expedite their immigration process. And, you know, after they've got their stuff in order, they divorce, and sad American spouse never saw it coming. Or maybe they did. Maybe they got paid to get married.
She did.
Or you know, there's all kinds of things that go on.
What a gig.
There's all kinds of things. I would want to go to jail. I would want to go to jail for that. It's, I have to say that the times when I was adjudicating and interviewing marriage cases where I just knew it was fraud, it was just ridiculous. It was kind of exciting to be able to talk them into, like, tripping themselves up. A little bit, and it wasn't very hard. The times it was a challenge, I felt like, good on you for making it hard. I appreciate the challenge. We have a whole section in our office called Fraud Detection and National Security. And what they do is go around and do site visits to see, you know, they knock on the door, can I come inside? Can I look around? Because if they say no, we can't go in, but people will let them in, and they look in the bathroom, and there's one toothbrush in the cup. And, you know, there's only clothes for a woman in the closet. And, you know, this is the home they cohabitated. And it just becomes a little easy. There's plenty of that we don't catch. I used to say when I was a police officer, we catch the dumb crooks pretty fast, and the smart ones take a little more time. Yeah. They usually give themselves up. People are like that. It's hard for people to keep secrets. They've got something they want to tell. Questions about family immigration? You know, you hear that someone can come here and then bring 23 relatives. It's not the case. I just articulated to you how hard it is. Even for someone who's an American citizen, their brothers and sisters are going to have to wait. There's no way they can immediately bring a bunch of relatives.
How was the sponsorships working years ago? The churches were sponsoring families.
It's not that they, so sponsoring meant that they were guaranteeing that these people would not become a public charge. They still had to qualify under the law. They had to demonstrate that they didn't have ineligibilities and criminal backgrounds and all those things. And what the church or individuals do when they sponsor is they're saying, I will make sure this person, if they don't have a job, I'll pay their bills. Yeah. And to be a sponsor, they have to meet certain thresholds as well. They have to demonstrate a certain level of income and that they're not already supporting a whole lot of people.
Kind of like a co-signer.
Well, yeah, a lot like that, a lot like that. Hi.
I have a friend who was a public health nurse, and she worked in tuberculosis. And a lot of the people who immigrate here do come, excuse me, come here, and then they will break down with TB. And it's very difficult to get someone to take medicine if they don't think they're sick. They think they're okay. The one family, and please, nothing against churches, but a church sponsored these people from, I don't know what country, it was an Asian country. And so she had to, on her way home, go by there and make sure, watch them pick their medication. She walked in and she said it was just freezing in this apartment. And she said something about how cold it was. The church got them here. They never told them how to turn the heat on.
So, yeah, those things happen. And, well, fortunately, so one of the offices that we have that help with immigration at the Department of State is the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration. And they administer U.S. refugee assistance and admission programs. So at the current time, we have a robust system of government administered programs that are aware of every refugee that settles in a state. We only have about 800 in Oregon every year. It's not very much. And it's becoming a lot less because we're not admitting as many refugees. But for the first year, they are just handheld all the time. They have families that not sponsor them so much, but kind of partner with them a little bit to take them grocery shopping, to show them how to use the oven, to show them how to read the recipe on the back of a box. You know, what do you do with it once you get it home? Like, is it microwavable? Does it go in the oven? To help them with all those things. We take so much for granted here in the U.S. about going out and putting gas in our cars and going to the post office and just our daily lives. Imagine someone coming from a place where none of those things really happen the way that we do them, how exhausting and intimidating it would be. I think I would get to the point where I just didn't want to go outside, you know? It'd be really hard. It would be nice to have a friend come over and walk with me through those things. Thank you for your nurse friend going over there and helping them out.
Oh, they did that all the time.
That was wonderful.
I
like hearing stories when people help people.
I got a quick funny story.
Do ya?
Yeah, we brought it to mind. When we first came here from Italy, everywhere we went there was signs that said garage sale.
Right.
And we're like, why is Americans selling their garages? Everybody, you know.
How do you get it home?
Yeah, it's like, where did they put this garage?
I love that. That's funny. Or think about if someone came here from a place where the alphabet's different. When I lived in Romania, we used to travel with a couple of Russian friends, and I speak Russian, and my two Russian friends speak Russian, and when we would drive to Bulgaria, all the signs there are in Cyrillic. So we could read them, and my husband couldn't. And I remember one time where he's driving, and he's like, does that sign say we should turn off? And the three of us are like, yeah, it does. Because we forgot that he couldn't read it. Like somebody that came here from Bulgaria, they wouldn't even be able to read the sign. They wouldn't even be able to sound out the letters on the sign. I just can't even imagine. And I have the most, I don't speak Asian languages very well. I find them very difficult. I can't even sound out Vietnamese. Every time I try it with my neighbors, they just laugh at me. But I keep trying. Diversity visa lottery. You hear a lot of incomplete information about this. So it was established as part of the Immigration Act of 1990. So this program has been around since 1990. It was established by Congress. And what it does is it sets aside 50,000, that's not that many, 50,000 immigrant visas every year to be doled out kind of at random. And the purpose of it is to make sure that we get immigration from all over the world, not just a handful of countries. So It selects applicants from countries with low numbers of immigrants in the previous 5 years. So since 1990, every year they have it, they consider how many immigrants have we had from Bangladesh in the last 5 years. And if it crosses a threshold, then nobody from Bangladesh can apply that year. So I've heard it said that countries put their worst citizens in the diversity lottery. And that's not true because that's not the way it works. Governments do not enter their citizens in the diversity visa lottery. It is self-selecting. You would decide, I think I'm going to take my chances on the visa lottery this year, and you would go online and submit your own application. Nobody can submit it for you. Make sense? Okay. There are scam artists all over the world who take advantage of anything that pops up. And they will try to submit entries for people who they really don't have any contact with. But if that entry gets selected, then that person is going to have to show up. They're going to have to be fingerprinted. And then the scam artist will then contact them and say, guess what? We can do this for you. We can get you to America. And usually they come to the embassy and we straighten them out. We tell them, no, you don't need that other guy. Don't pay them any money. This is how it works. So people from countries that are qualified to enter will submit their own name to be in the diversity visa lottery. And if their name is selected, is one of the 50,000, they don't automatically get a visa to immigrate to the United States. They become eligible to apply for a visa to come to the United States. And all of the regular screening for every single immigrant applies to them. The criminal background, whether or not they've been to the US before and are ineligible, how much they may have misrepresented themselves on their application, like all those things come into play. If they are qualified and they also have a threshold for education and work experience, it's not enough that they won the opportunity and they're decent people. They also have to demonstrate that they have a certain level of education or that they've held a certain position professionally. If they pass all that, they can come to the United States as an immigrant, which is really hard to do. This is one of the few ways you can do this. And they are eligible to bring their immediate family, which, as you know, for this is just spouse and kids, not parents. After they've been in the United States for 5 years as immigrants with a green card, legal permanent residents, after 5 years, they're eligible to apply for citizenship. And then once they're citizens, a U.S. citizen can apply for their mom and dad. Or brothers and sisters, or right here. So in 2018, so here's where that list of countries came in. We get a whole lot of immigrants from these countries. So these countries are not eligible to participate in the diversity visa. Bangladesh, Brazil, Canada, China, only the mainland. People from Taiwan can apply. Colombia, the Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Haiti, India, Jamaica, Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan, Peru, Philippines, South Korea, United Kingdom, North Ireland can apply. Vietnam is excluded. All those countries are excluded because we get a lot of immigrants from all those countries. We want to get, the diversity visa is specifically designed to bring people from places that don't normally come to the U.S. So that, we get a real cross-section of the world coming here and contributing to our culture and our society.
No New Zealand's.
Those people. they're just not coming here in droves. What can I say? They're just not doing it. About 20 million people apply every year for a diversity visa. And I'll tell you why. It's because the United States is a great country and it's full of wonderful people. We make mistakes, but we try to improve. We move forward incrementally, but we're always trying to move forward and get it right. And people see that around the world and they want to be part of it. They want to come here and experience economic prosperity and safety for their family and good education for their children. Can you blame them?
What's that like in Lents?
She's not from Lents.
I've lived and worked all over the world, and I have to say that there are millions of people that would be really grateful to live here and experience what we have. Immigration makes our country stronger. The contributions of immigrants are innumerable. They make us mighty. They bring our country this rich diversity and ideas and keep us on our toes, you know? So I think that it's important to understand the law and our agencies, how they intersect and where authority resides, so that when you feel like something isn't working and you'd like to have a voice in the process, that you can direct that to the appropriate place. Someone coming to your meeting and abusing me isn't going to change anything. But hearing what I have to say and then refocusing your effort in the right direction, that's power. That's very valuable.
So I'm going to ask you that one question that I emailed you about the 92-year-old
You're going to ask me the HUD question? I don't work for HUD.
Well, you know, it's funny because she said it doesn't have to do with this HUD housing. It's just trying to get the Oregon ID card.
That's Oregon.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I am not unsympathetic.
Yeah.
But I can only illuminate the things that,
She's got enough to look at now.
I know, she's got
you
enough
know,
to
the
deal
things
with.
that occur in my agency, the
Right.
things that we administer. If I'm a smart cookie, and if I was to sit down and research it, I might be able to find things for you. But honestly, I'm sorry, I don't have time.
Oh, no, they already told her it takes a year just to get that straightened out. And that's basically abusive, so
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
that's okay.
Yeah.
She wanted to be here tonight, but she had to work. Well,
Yes.
This is off the beaten path, but I know people that bring animals in and they rescue animals and bring them in from foreign countries.
Oh my goodness.
How does that work?
They're not citizens.
A
Yeah.
suitcase?
I've seen that.
With a
I'm
couple
pretty
holes?
sure that CBP would be where you need to address your inquiry because they control the port. And when you want to drive to California, they're the ones that like, you roll down your window and ask if you got any fruit and vegetables. So I'm sure that if you sent an email to CBP and asked them, what are the rules about bringing animals into the U.S. from other countries? They could probably answer that pretty easy.
Aren't they in quarantine?
I don't know.
I think so.
I know if you go to Hawaii, pets going to be quarantined.
For a year, or no, for 6 months to go into Hawaii.
They've changed it a little bit. You can get a
You get
validation
quarantined at
from your
home.
pet. Yeah, you can now.
My cousin 11 years ago took 2 dogs to Hawaii. They got a vet check
Yeah.
in Chinook, Washington, quarantined in Chinook, Washington for 3 months, put them on an airplane, flew in onto the mainland, had to pay $400, this was after hours, for the Hawaii veterinarian, state veterinarian, to come look in the crate and say, yeah, they're healthy. And then took her dogs to her new house in Hawaii. Didn't have to do anything to bring them home.
Didn't Johnny Depp get in trouble for bringing his dogs to Australia or something like that?
Yeah, Johnny Depp did, yeah.
That poor guy. You know, bad things shouldn't happen to pretty people. It's just more tragic when it happens to beautiful people. What can I tell you about U.S. immigration? What have you heard? You know, there's a lot
Oh
of
my
crazy
gosh.
rumors out there. And I said, just
I
for your
become
page.
Four-letter word.
Yeah, it's a shame because there's a lot of hardworking people with a lot of heart there.
But when did they become public enemy number 1?
Wait, but there's rescue agencies that do it, so
You know, people who are angry about things that are happening, sometimes they find an easy target, and ICE has become an easy target. I think I was really excited that Antifa might be here tonight because I think they don't understand the immigration process
I could
very
have
well.
gotten here.
I don't have to.
I was kind of looking forward to letting them know that their gripe might be the CBP.
Yeah.
The thing is, they wouldn't listen, that's,
They might.
they're pretty busy yelling.
I'm pretty nice. People usually give me a little bit of an ear.
Show them the shoes, that'll do it.
You know, this isn't the only pair of these I have. I have loafers as well. Yeah, you know, we have a lot of heightened rhetoric right now. People that want to make a point. Instead of making a point, they just make more volume. It feels like I would like people to talk to me and ask me questions. I hear a lot of rumors in the community. You know, I speak to everybody, literally everybody. And I hear from immigrant groups, legal or not, that they're being preyed upon. They get phone calls that say, you know, you're on a list at ICE for deportation. But I have a friend that works at ICE, and for $500 we can get you off the list. And they're like, $500? That's a lot of money. Wow, you have $500. Well, you know, for $100 we can probably get you moved to the bottom of the list. Well, they're terrified, you know, and couldn't pay $500, but now it's $100 for a little insurance, and they'll pay it. And it's nonsense from beginning to end. People are using our letterhead or ICE's letterhead to make fake deportation letters to send them to people with a bill. It says, if you don't want to be, here's your deportation notice. If you don't want to be deported, remit $1,000 to.
Kind of like the calls.
There's all kinds of scams.
Yeah, the IRS just come get you.
Yeah.
And the reason that's happening is because the more people that, if you have a victim class, the victim class will be preyed upon. And right now we have a group of people, not so much in Oregon, because people who don't have legal status in Oregon still feel like they're being victimized, they can go to the police safely. But in other states like Texas, if an illegal immigrant is being victimized, extorted, raped, they don't feel like they can go to the police because they're going to be deported. And a lot of people they have that held over their heads. You know, you're going to come to my house and clean it every day of the week, and if you disagree, I'm going to report you to immigration, and you're going to be deported. And because they're afraid of the police, they're going to be victimized like that.
That becomes slavery.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But here's the thing with bad actors and criminal elements like that. At no time do they ever sit back and go like, well, I think I've accomplished all my goals here. They keep moving on. And, you know, that criminality is going to seep into other neighborhoods. So, you know, it's smart to reform our immigration laws and to help people feel, no matter what their status in the U.S., make them feel like no matter what's going on with your immigration status, you don't deserve to be the victim of a crime. You should be able to report that safely. Everything ripples out. You know, you think you're protesting this one little immigration thing, but it actually intersects and affects a whole lot of things around it.
So, let's say I'm here illegally.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I haven't heard one thing. Okay, sorry. Okay, you're next.
No, it's okay.
Hey, I know that you're not really with the enforcement on it, but you said something about the way that it intersects with Oregon's sanctuary status?
It's not a sanctuary status.
I'm sorry?
Finish your thought, I'm sorry.
Oh, just the question is, you said that it changes the way that the enforcement on them is working. In other words, they won't go to Walmart and just check everybody's immigration status. Is that specific to Oregon? Is it sanctuary?
So it's not related to the sanctuary status of Oregon. Sanctuary status, being a sanctuary city, isn't a legal definition, it's a posture. And it's important to keep that difference in mind. It's something that a group of people have said, this is our belief, this is the way we want to have things be. But it doesn't have any legality behind it. What we have in Oregon, and this is unrelated to anybody saying that it's a sanctuary state or a sanctuary city, is a law that says that the law enforcement entities in Oregon will not enforce immigration law. That's all it is. And
actually, it says that they won't use race profile for immigration status. That's what that law says.
There's more to it than that. Law enforcement agencies here don't enforce immigration law. In other states, they will. They'll observe detainers. Like when ICE is looking for someone, they'll put a detainer on them in the computer system. So that's with DOJ, so that if that person gets arrested by a municipality, they are aware that ICE has a detainer. And in Oregon, often they won't honor the detainer. As soon as that person is administratively completed whatever the municipality needs, they'll release them instead of holding them so that ICE can come and take them. That's the difference, basically. There are some subtleties to it, but it doesn't really coincide with the sanctuary status. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm not being entirely clear, but I hope that I'm helping like categorize it a little bit better for you. Sanctuary status isn't a law, it's a posture. It's a philosophy. There's a difference.
So because they don't detain them, has nothing to do with being sanctuary. That's two different things.
Not really. No.
Is it the law of the outcropping of the posture?
No, because if someone breaks a law, so in San Francisco, sanctuary city, if someone breaks a law, no matter what their immigration status is, they're still going to be held accountable for the law that they broke. Right? It's just that if they also have immigration violations, those violations aren't going to be administered by the municipality. Only the municipal law is going to be administered. Whereas in Texas, if they get arrested for breaking a local law, and they also have an immigration violation, Texas will hold them for the immigration violation as well. They don't have to. You know, it's complicated. It's worth delving into a little deeper. And I could probably find you some good links on more information if you're interested. I'm sure you can. And I would be interested in what you have as well, because I like to cast my net wide when I'm trying to learn about something. That's me. I don't always answer my phone, but I always answer my email. And you're welcome to email me any question you have. And I don't work for ICE, and that's probably why I have such an inarticulate response to your question. I would like to be more concise about that. So I am going to look it up and try to understand it a little bit better, even for myself, after I leave here tonight. So thanks for asking. Tell me your story.
It was pretty much his question.
Yeah?
Sorry.
No. Great minds think alike.
Right out of it. What else, you guys? I'm here and I love talking and I like that you're inquisitive and want to know things.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
You have a very varied background.
Yeah, I do.
You're multilingual.
I am.
You have to have at least one college degree to be a law enforcement officer.
I have
so
four.
that you're very intelligent.
I'm a smart
Why
cookie.
did you move to Oregon?
I never thought I'd be here. I never dreamed about moving to Oregon. But when I knew that I wanted to be a community relations officer. I knew that this was my path. And this is a niche role in my agency. There's only about 100 of us in the whole country. It's very hard to get these jobs. You have to have a lot of nerve. And so when the position became available in Portland, I jumped at it. And in fact, I had already talked about wanting to be a community relations officer. And when the job opened, a friend of mine called me and said, "Your dream job, it's open, it's in Portland. What do we know about Portland?" And we sat down and looked on YouTube and we saw food carts and Powell's and Mount Hood and, beautiful green trees. And, I'm a desert Southwest person. I live in the sand and the cacti and I love it. But it seemed like, yeah, let's try that for a little while. And I'll tell you, I'm not down with your weather at all. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's beautiful right now, though, isn't it?
Yeah, 90 degrees.
Yeah, when the rain stops.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get that much rain this last year, we're behind our.
Not as much, yeah. Now that I've been here for 3 years, I feel like I can talk about it. Well, you know, last year was really light. Let me school you on Oregon weather. The winters and the constant rain, that's really hard, but I think Oregon has so many things to like, and it doesn't make up for it, but it certainly makes it worth it.
Well, this is pretty much God's country. It doesn't get much better than this.
It's got a lot to sell us. It certainly does, and all of my friends have been here to visit, all of them.
Around the country, they'll say the same.
We try not to let people know.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm glad you feel that way. You're a very good spot. Thank you. Sometimes I look around and I see people checking out and I think, well, what do you want to talk about? We'll talk about something else. You want to talk about what it's like to live in Iraq? I was there for a year. Or
Is that where you?
whatever you want.
No, I was talking to a.
We appreciate you being brave and coming out anyway.
You're welcome. I don't.
We've been
Not worry about anything.
Well, if you read those posts, you'll see, or the article you sent me actually was a good one.
You know, I was reflexively reaching for my pitchfork and my torch after I saw that.
Oh, were you the source of the Mercury article?
I sent it to me. She sent it to me. I didn't even
I
know about
forwarded it.
it.
I read it. I went, oh my God.
This is where I'm going to these people.
We are.
I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Instagram, I'm not on any social media because it's been occurring that these groups that want to get back at ICE will find any immigration official and they dox us. Do you know what that means? I've been doxed.
Yeah.
I have found flyers on the cars in my neighborhood saying, are you aware that there's a monster that lives in your neighborhood? Her name is Quinn Andrus, and there it is, and here's her phone number, and here's her car, and here's what her husband looks like, and here's her dog.
Oh, wow.
Oh, don't touch the dog.
Don't touch my dog. I'll pull John Wick on you. Don't think I can. But so I had to get off of social media.
I understand.
And it's funny because, you know, I'm left of center, I'm pretty liberal. A lot of my friends in Austin are very liberal, and I was visiting there last year, and I was telling them about getting doxxed, and they were horrified. Who would do that? And I said, radical leftists. And you could just see it dawning on them, oh, you can go too far. And I think that's a good reminder for everybody. Like, we want to stay towards the middle. We want to be able to talk and communicate. We don't want to be out here on either fringe. Nothing good happens on the fringe.
David got some post on his furniture doctor. He has a
On
business.
my business Facebook.
What?
Yeah, and this guy posted that Mercury, the link to that, and he said, I would not recommend a furniture doctor for any kind of work because he's
NIMBY asshat.
NIMBY asshat.
And it's like,
So
yeah.
I'm going to have a name tag made up that says NIMBY asshat.
Either one of those commissions. Hello, I'm NIMBY asshat. Sorry. Yeah, those things happen. I'm sorry. Sorry. What else? You know what? Now that we've had this conversation and you know me a little bit, things are going to occur to you tonight, tomorrow, next week. You're going to talk to friends and say, guess what I found out about the diversity visa lottery? And they're going to argue with you. And tell you how wrong you are. Just send me an email and I'll send you a link to like the official .gov page that explains it. You can go like, here you go, read it yourself. I'm not having this argument anymore.
Yeah.
Or you might just come up with questions. I can't talk to you about a friend's case. Like I can't get in the system and find out why the green card's taking so long or anything like that, but I can talk to you about the process. And I'm happy to. I'm happy to share anything I've got. Things are constantly changing, not the law, but the way we administer it. So you might have questions, you never know. Yeah. I'm just going to sit here until nobody talks anymore. So.
Well, I was wondering, you're not parked by me, are you? Go start your car first.
Yeah, go start your car.
Do you want something to eat? There's lots of food there. There really is.
Thank you. hungry, but thank you for your hospitality.
Oh, you're
Appreciate it.
welcome.
Before we adjourn, we're always looking for suggestions about who do we want to have come speak to us next.
Can we shorten this?
Char does all the heavy lifting on this.
I've got Daryl Turner scheduled because he was supposed to be here tonight, but when I called back, they had already booked a ride along for him tonight. And I guess there's some mission they're doing tonight. That's why we don't have any police
Yeah, the
here.
police are on a mission.
They're on a mission. So anyway, so he's coming.
How exciting.
He's coming in September. So I've got him booked for our
Good, I
September
like
meeting, but I have nothing for July or August. So if you guys have anybody you think you might want to talk to or talk, just, I'm putting it out there. See, Doug was this gal's suggestion. Doug said, I want somebody from immigrations. I said, okay.
Charlie,
And you tried to get the ICE community liaison, but she couldn't make it.
I know.
So you got me, sorry.
I know, that's okay. She wouldn't come from Seattle. She was afraid to come to Portland.
She's really nice. You know, she's also a ginger.
Oh,
Sometimes
okay.
we joke that we're cousins.
Uh-huh.
Although all redheads are related.
They're gingers.
Oh. Gingers, soulless
Redheads.
Their hair rusted.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, anybody have announcements? Anything on their mind before we adjourn?
Well, I just want to know if it's possible to revoke the citizenship of someone who was born here.
I could fill buses.
Bad news, Doug.
He's got immigrant parents or something, somewhere along the line.
We all do.
That's right.
We all have an immigration story.
Well, that's it. We need to remember that we all are immigrants.
We all have an immigration story.
Yeah.
I give an immigration history lecture at universities, and throughout the lecture I intersperse it with little guess who this immigrant is, you know, people like Pulitzer or Isaac Asimov or Madeleine Albright. And then the very last picture is just kind of an outline with a question mark, and I tell a little bit about, well, this person has an immigrant story too. Their ancestors came over from Germany and Ireland and, you know, struggled with this and did that, and who do you think it is? And then I pop it up, and it's me. You know, you might look at me and think that I don't have an immigrant story, but of course I do. We all do.
Yeah.
It's something that we should keep in mind when we're going forward, trying to decide how we're going to treat immigrants today.
I have to show you a piece of paper. Now, Bob says it's not real, but this guy sent me this. It's one of our astronauts in 1969, and he had it. Bob said it's not real. No,
It's fine.
Did he find it on the
though.
moon? It's not
Do
real.
I need my glasses?
Yeah, you need your glasses.
Okay. Okay.
But he sent me this, and he says, what was he bringing back? I said he was bringing back illegal aliens. Oh, he went to the moon.
I've never heard the government use nil as a.
That's funny. That's funny.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. It's
So,
moon rocks.
Shari, you realize that moon mission really didn't happen.
I know.
It was all done on the chat stage in Burbank.
That's wonderful.
so you see what gets confusing here? Here's a news story on the New York Post from the Home Security Chief.
Which
What's his
one?
name
Which
here?
one?
Acting Secretary of the United States Department of Home Security,
Okay.
saying that of the 7,000 asylum claims, 90% of those people who are here in the United States did not show, and they are now seeking them with orders of deportation.
Let me, the New York Post.
That's your boss, isn't it, New York Post?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is this is the kind of stuff, see, we read this and then we hear something
Don't read
different.
the New York Post.
I just love my reading books. I'll find it in a minute. You're right. You know what? And I get challenged a lot when I go out. People say, how come everything you're saying contradicts what President Trump said? And he's my boss. You know, I'm not going to badmouth him, but I think he's one of those guys that's going to answer the question even if he doesn't know the answer. You know?
Very true, very true.
So a lot of the times he has an incomplete answer. But in this particular case, I have to say that I know for a fact that that's a little bit out of context. and that if you give me a day, I can find you a couple of different reliable sources that give you a more accurate number.
So why is he working?
You're asking me an incendiary question that
Have you not heard of the Peter Principle?
it can't be answered.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He done rose.
There are different ways to convey information, and I can find a more immediate source, like a primary. That's what they call them, a primary source. I can find you a reference where that data exists in its original form without interpretation. So let me find that for you, and within the next couple of days, I'll pass that on. So I was playing with the ring and I flung it across the room.
Oh, no.
I want it back.
I said something towards the TV stand.
Is it a big diamond?
Maybe.
All of them.
Hey, David, can you hook this up to the Wi-Fi? Brian wants to pull something.
It's just a silver band with a stone.
I'm gonna move your bag, just to make sure it's not under it.
It's not. It's a little turn. If I took off my shoes, I'd step on it.
Well, take off the shoes.
That would be a
They won't
contact.
steal them.
It could have gone a long way.
She said a band with flying.
This feels really good.
Hi.